we're going to be going on now, I think.
Excellent.
It says here that the meeting is now streaming live. So stop swearing, Suzanne. Stop swearing.
God, I'm so much of a potty.
It won't do your reputation any good. All right, there we go. It should be going live now on the.
That's funny.
Exactly. There we are.
Right.
Stop swearing, Suzanne.
I've got the delay.
Try saying set a timer for 2. Don't be telling me what to do. I've got no idea what's going on. My fingers have gone funny and everything. Opening web. Stop.
Right, I think I've got it on mine now. So you are live on yours because I can see you. And if I switch the sound down, I can see everyone's comments as well. So that's always good when we're having a natter that you can see what people are writing. There
we go. Okay, I'll just turn the sound. Somebody, I'm happy to meet you. If I had hands, who's this? Oh, steady on.
Is that on your YouTube? That can't be on our Facebook.
No, I've got no idea. No, this isn't going live to YouTube. I have to like download it and then upload it, and I haven't become sophisticated enough.
No, I'm not. Yet. I'm not. I can't do that multi-stream thing that Todd does. It's very advanced and sophisticated.
To be honest with you, they just need time to do stuff. And here we go. Oh, a few scallies. Look, Ernie's here. Oh, Ernie, behave yourself. I've been watching some of the stuff that you're doing. Jana, Jana, I love you, and I don't even. We've never met, but I love you, right? Kira, nice to see you, Kira. So, Suzanne, it's nice to see you. I don't know when the last time we met in the flesh was. It was up in Glastonbury tour at some point, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. We were on the tour together, weren't we?
On the tour together, yeah, we were on the tour together.
Life, probably on one of the solstices, not so long ago.
Because I didn't know I was a grid worker until somebody said to me, "You're a grid worker," and I said, "What's a grid work?" I said, "I'll just get a feeling like to put my hands up in the air and do a bit of a shimmy, and like I get feelings, you know." And he said, "That's called grid work," and I thought, "Okay, I'm a grid worker." But I do get the call, you know, I get the go down to Glastonbury next weekend, and I think, what do you mean? Just go down, don't question it, go down. I think, who is this talking to me? So I say, because then I go into my heart then, and I go, "Hello, heart. You said that you'd look after me. Who is this talking to me?" And I get, "It's me." I think, "Oh, all right then. I better go along with it, you know." But it all seems to fall into place. Anyway, how are you?
I've just got to chip in there because it's brilliant. Like, I have this thing about like what we call the higher self, and it's like they're in the comm box. They've got the headset on just like you, and they're just like they're like feeding the information right into you, because they're like, "God, that's that human part of me. It's not really got the program yet, has it?" So that's what's happening. It's just like that. It's just like you're in like the producer of the TV show, and all the little yous are there, and the comm box is you, and it's giving you the signals. Like when we cut onto this, we'll stop trusting these touchy beings like walking around influencing us and be a lot more receptive to.
I agree. I think it's like the navigation system as well as. You know, what I'm seeing quite clearly, and have for a long time, as most of the people who tune into this, is that we've been duped for a long time. And I got told clearly, hang on a second, nobody's done anything to you without your permission at some level. I go, "Well, what do you mean? We didn't know?" Exactly. Yeah. Right. So not only was it your stupidity and your naivety, but it was your arrogance as well, because we've been trying to tell you for eons of time, will you shut up and listen? We're trying to give you information here, right? But thank goodness, in the nick of time, when you were on the brink, right, it looks like the wax popped out of your ears and you finally heard what we were saying to you. And what was it? What you're looking for is not out there, it's in there. And that's what I've realized, you know, and what I tend to do now is, as well as helping myself a lot more than I ever used to, in a self-caring way, of course, because now I'm completely free of ego. And in full
I'm
service,
gonna hold you to that
yeah,
one.
and in full service to humanity, I try and help other people to go in there. So people say to me, I wonder if you can help me. Well, what do you want? Well, all this is happening to me. Well, I say, I haven't got the answers. Well, you've got a PhD. You should know. My wife says this to me all the time. You've got a PhD. You should know. And I said, I've got no idea. I said, I've got no idea what I should do. And therefore, there's not much point in asking me what you should do. So all I can suggest is, if you do this breathing technique and you cultivate like an inner smile in your heart, like a nice feeling, that seems to give you some inspiration then from a deeper level. And I say, so go away, do this for 3 10-minute sessions a day, tap on your heart and say, is there anybody in there? And then see what happens next. Over to you, boss.
You saying me?
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
listening to you. Oh, it's like
All
listening
right.
to my wise uncle.
What are you
Yeah.
trying to say? Don't look that old. You look older than me. What are you going on about?
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the things that happens is when we approach the idea of self-accountability, so in that space that we have, because I think we can both reflect on where we've been, and we both have, quite significant trauma and spaces of dissociation, that when we're coming towards the notion of I created it, when we've got the victim profile active, so when we've got active trauma and a particularly suppressed trauma in the body, which hasn't been addressed through traditional psychological approaches up until this point, really, we've tried to medicate it largely, that the space of the felt sense hasn't developed enough. So we've got this overridden sense that isn't really the felt sense. And that feels like the victim is like, oh my God, all this terrible stuff that someone else did to me, or this thing that happened or kept happening because of the role of what happens with re-traumatization, that we can't accept the notion that we created it. I think people struggle with that. And that's largely why perhaps we create this dissociative morphogenic field, which has all these characters that have become very powerful in the narrative, particularly in the new age, and therefore open to influence and bias. And we stay in that validation of that place where we don't have to take accountability. And of course, that is where the problem is for us, because we're looking for someone else to heal us. Yes, so you're right. Like we can't, I can't advise you on what's right for you, and you can come to know that and develop a felt sense. So for me, particularly as someone who has been largely dissociated, when I came into the body, it was through meditation and breath work, and particularly the last couple of years where I've gone to do somatic training and more comprehensive breath work training, that I noticed that I had deep pockets of dysregulation. And so coming into that has been life-changing, Joe, completely like stilling. So you're right, my practice involves literally that. I do it twice a day. So I worked through the presence process by Michael Brown. That was how I came in with my training and started to do connected breath work, and at the same time as having COVID. So when I had COVID, and it was a couple of years ago now, just over, it affected my central nervous system, and I got myelitis. So what that is for people that are watching is basically your central nervous system is inflamed, and it really fucked with my parasympathetic and sympathetic response. I was just in fight or flight all the time. And because I still had elements of complex post-traumatic stress that I hadn't yet worked through and embodied, it played havoc. So breath work was what saved me. Breath work stabilized me, and it's allowed me to heal myself. And I was still doing all the spiritual stuff while I was going through this stuff, just not sharing it because it's incredibly personal. But I feel that I had to address that key factor at that point, and over the last couple of years is the victim complex, and that's what keeps us in the lack of accountability or self-accountability that we need to really feel the source inside what is essentially the core body. That's what we are.
I agree. And I think that my job is to help people. I think that my job is to help people to understand this, and this is going to be, as far as I'm concerned, the most important thing that I say tonight. That if you are feeling emotionally disturbed, I'm not saying having emotions, I'm saying emotionally disturbed, then it's because some aspect of your ego is under threat. Because the divine part of you can't be disturbed. And that's really, really, if you can get hold of that and understand that anything at all that triggers you is a sort of a message to say, stop, breathe like this, take a step back, create some mind space through this breathing, sit in the audience of your own play and look at it objectively. And that's, to me, what mindful breathing and mindfulness is about. It's a way to be objective about your own subjectivity, but you don't get it through thinking about it. You actually have to do something physical. You have to take an action. And my whole thing is, that's all very well, that theory. Very, very nice indeed. Very interesting. But what are you going to do about it? And it's what kids say in the school playground. They say, well, what are you going to do about it? And I'm saying the same thing, only because it was said to me. And the phrase that was given to me sounds a bit religious, but I'm not a religious person. I'm a scientist, you know. The phrase is, faith without works is dead. Meaning you can have all the faith in the world that mountains will be moved, but unless you take a shovel and start digging, nothing's going to change. Because to me, that's the grounding process, right? That flushes out old neural networks. So we're talking about the nervous system, and it replaces it now with new neural networks. And here's the most important thing is, you can't put a new neural network on top of the old one. The old one's got to completely be disintegrated, and it's got to be starved of energy, right? And how do we do that? We pay no heed to it, and we take no notice, and we don't give it any attention, right? Because that's what it's seeking, you know. I mean, and this is deep already, you know, but it's so important that I've learned this, but it's so simple that if you're feeling emotionally disturbed, no matter what your tricky dicky head is telling you, right? Because it's your ego saying, no, you don't have to look at that. That'll be the pride part of the ego saying it. Or it'll be saying, ooh, I don't think I'm going down there. And that's fear. And I think there's two things is fear and pride. And there's something, Susanne, as you well know, called spiritual bypassing. And I want to call that something different, shadow bypassing. And I honestly don't believe that we can ascend, if there is such a thing as ascension, which I don't believe in anymore, because there's nowhere to go. There's just sort of things to be revealed, if you like. I think that I've lost my train of thought. Over to you.
Keep going. Oh no, it was good. You were on a really good flow there. Really important flow.
It stopped for some reason.
That's okay. Well, the bypass is essential to harness, really. I think it's to recognize what it is, and it's a key thing is parenting, isn't it? It's just we've because we're human, and because of the way whatever the hologram is has constructed itself for our learning process. We go in babies and we come out babies, and we have to rely on whatever caregiving we got, and it varies widely over the planet and culture. So what's at the center of it, regardless of culture and anything, is the degree of separation from the core, from the essential divine body. Because when the baby is born, irrespective of how it's conceived, no matter what the narrative is, it's got its source. It does not differentiate itself yet. So what's happened to us is that process. And so in that we get the ego, it all develops. And the thing is, we're scrabbling around looking for the parent all the time, heal me. I mean, been doing what I do, like you get it. So like everybody that works in this field does. It's just like, heal me, fix me, be my parent. I'll be your girlfriend, be my girlfriend to serve my part, or, that's what we grow up with, or we farm it out into substances or telly or whatever it is. It is just a million. Our world is built, and that's what this code is about, actually, is to come out of it, to build for distraction. It's just built to distract our minds. So what you were saying is, you said this is a piece of key advice: pay it no attention. And you're right, not at all occasions. I don't think. Sometimes we do have to come back and learn from our experiences, but it's more that we're recognizing a piece of historical information in the body, or a memory that we're retrieving is just that. It's data. It's a data set, and it has a neural patterning. It has a morphogenic, or that's an energy patterning for your body that you can feel. You can learn to feel that. That's your biggest signal, that feeling, not the picture or the memory, because your brain is just like going to overwrite everything. It does. It's like a flipping cinematographer. It just like makes it up. It's got a hole, it'll just make it up. So you've got all this stuff that pops in, and you believe it, just like you're going to see a film that someone's written a script for. And like someone says, you're from the planet Venus and you were a king on the planet Venus. And suddenly that little girl part of you, or little boy part of you that's like injured, it's like, oh no, I'm gonna go and be a king now. And that's at the heart of the metaverse. That's what it wants you to do. It wants you to be assimilated and go into be an avatar in something where you can be everything that will distract you from your core Christic self in the body and the felt set. And that is the mission here. I do believe that this is what we've come to learn in the hologram, is that core space of navigating through this immensely distracting genomic, epigenetic, biochemical configuration to come through into presence. It's so simple. God would not make it complicated. It wouldn't. Like the field of ourself, it doesn't matter what we call it, but the field of divine intelligence would not create complexity in the core, right in the center, in the core. Now everything around it, of course, it can get very, very complicated. But in the core, for me, I just feel it's very simple, that we've got to find this space. And then we can meet, everyone can meet. That's the thing. It doesn't matter what your systems are, your values, your trauma, your location, your money. We all meet in that place. For me, that's what communion is and what unity is. And for me, when I talk about the Christ body, that's what I'm really talking about. I'm talking about that. I feel
agree.
like I'm gonna cry now, because it just feels so powerful. It's so powerful when we meet that. And I know all the time in my life when, God, like I just forgot.
I think that's it. We just forgot who we are, and I know that that's the truth. And I keep having these memory lapses, and I think that that's a good thing, because my problem was, and when you were saying before about paying no attention, but sometimes we do, I didn't mean it like that. What I meant was, don't get emotionally attached to it, so breathe it away and stay detached with love. It's got to be detached with love, because sometimes memories will come up that will bring with it a real grip, right? And what I'm trying to say is, breathe away the grip. And when you breathe out, you actually emotionally disengage, because you activate the parasympathetic or the vagus nerve. And it's the vagus nerve, which is the nurturing side. It's the caring side. It's associated with the feminine aspect of the human being. And I think what's actually happened over eons of time is that the patriarchal masculine side has its way for far too long. But there's a problem with this, and I see it loads and loads of times, is that loads of ladies now and women You know, they get mixed up with what people are saying. And I'm not saying male and female here. I'm talking about masculine and feminine, the gender aspects that are within every human being, because I see each human being is androgynous, you know, and that's what I'm going to say is that, you know, we all human beings have within them estrogen and testosterone. You know, they're those sex hormones that do all sorts of damage if they're sort of imbalanced in the underneath department, you know, in that old sacral chakra, you know. And people are talking about, you know, sex therapy, and I think it would be probably better called sacral therapy, because there's two ways, you know, all that energy can go. It can either spill out below the waist, right? Or it can be in a way used in a mindful way to actually redirect the energy for more important purposes, you know. And this is what I was trying to say the other night. Comes a time naturally when those urges to express this externally start to diminish, you know. But I think that the society that we live in at the moment tells you, no, you can have this going until you pop off. You know, you can still be at it at 95 years of age. Do you want to take the red pill or the blue pill? And of course, most people take the little blue pill, you know. And so we keep sort of, if you like, redirecting the energy that's trying to naturally change its course, right? To give us, you know, and this is what I was talking about the other night, from sex, that's the physical act that I'm talking about, to super consciousness. And all we have to do is just basically sit with it. I was going to say, don't interfere with it, right? And almost the process almost turns round and starts to work its way through the whole body then. And as you know, from a somatovisceral and a visceral somatic point of view, everything's connected. So if we can just sit in the energy and mindfully not interfere and allow the energy to do the work for us in the right place at the right time, then more and more insights come to a person, more and more nudges come. Maybe nudger is the wrong word, but, you know, maybe we get more nudges. Oh God, there you go. I can't help it, you know, but yeah, but that's what I'm trying to say. I think I personally have been miles off target, you know, but I see that once I surrendered and allowed this deeper energy to almost like start to navigate me, right, then everything started to change. I started to see things more clearly. I started to understand why I'd behaved the way I'd behaved in the past, you know, both in drinking and without drinking as well. You know, I understood that the ideas and the emotions and the attitudes that I'd been living by didn't work for me. They were externally, socially engineered moral code that was given to me that didn't resonate with my essential core self, you know. And I think that's what I handed over to the internal navigation system. Some people call it an internal moral compass. And when I say moral, I'm not talking about religion here or good and bad. Morality to me just means something that's aligned with my deeper purpose as a unique individual. And Susanne, you know that your moral compass might have completely the opposite idea from me, but you've got to go with that as well, you know. And that's where I'm up to. Is surrender to me means that you're not giving anything to an external source. You're actually turning your eyes inwards and saying, look, I honestly don't know how to live my life here. I look at the past and I see what a great shit show I've made of it, right? So I'm handing, right, all of it over to you to help me to manage my life in this contemporaneous period. To give us a clue, will you? And that's what I did over 30 odd years ago, you know, and my life has been transformed beyond my wildest dreams. Has it been easy? Has it like buggery? Because I don't think it is easy, you know. I think all this is about experience, as you would say, a deeper felt sense. That to me is when knowledge acted upon becomes wisdom. Over to you. Love 40, Dr. Joe.
Well, I just love listening to you, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? I think a lot of that stuff is that we need is subtle. It's very subtle. And you were talking about the flow, like the current. So the energy flow in the sacral or in the root is very key, because obviously when we get lots of psycho-spiritual experiences, it can take us up, can't it? It can take us really into that realm. I mean, you know, I can look at what I do, but it meant nothing until I really brought it into my body and rooted it in that system. So all that energy potential is resting where the fire is, you know, it's where all the fountain of that energy springs from, and the stability is key down here, because that's the current, the energy current that you were talking about through, you know, let's just say sexual practices and the way we choose to conduct ourselves. We don't move the currents of energy through the body in ways which could really unlock our potential. So we've really lived in a kind of, it's like a fancy dress party for a character that we made up, and it's not even ours. And I remember actually the first big mentor I had, who was a complete bastard to me. Like, I hated this person so much because they were just giving me the truth all the time, and I couldn't listen. I did not have the ears or the time or the humility or the stillness to be able to hear what was being said at the time. So I made this person the enemy. It's what we do, isn't it? When someone's doing this, it's what we do. It's a class play. But they were talking very much about that space of, who are you? And I'm like, well, no, I am this, I am that. But none of it was what I consider. In fact, I can't tell you what I am, like what is me, because I know that even now I have characters of myself. I'm aware that I have different states of energy. So say, like, if I'm with my daughter, I'm totally different. I'm mum. Yeah, I'm mum to my daughter. If I'm presenting or facilitating, I've got an energy that's with me that is, you know, there's just no bullshit there. It's just like really still space. And then, you know, then I'm in my own ego bit, like doing this work, and there's all like, you know, the broken bits and the bits that aren't connected. And, you know, that can be like a different space. But we're really, because we are, what we are is eternal. We're taught that we're in time. We're taught that we've got this step, this hierarchy, this place you're going to get to, this heaven. We're going to get to heaven. We're going to get to the end. We're going to create something new. But what about right now? Can we just even accept where we are right at this moment? And I think in that space is where the miracle happens. I see people just heal, collapse stuff that they've held in their bodies for years, just through that. And you don't need belief for that, but you do need presence, and you need to be able to develop congruent stillness practice to witness and listen to what is the message. Like you said, that message. I'll give you an example tonight. I couldn't find my blooming glasses. So for anyone that's watching this, I've moved house, everything's in boxes, and I'm preparing to travel. So, you know, I'm like walking around in a different environment to what I'm used to. And I put my glasses down, I couldn't find them. And literally I just asked, where's my glasses? And then I knew where. I just had to walk. My body walked me to the glasses. The other day it found some money. It knows, like, your body intelligence is so advanced. It's like a light ship. And it's so advanced that we're using like 2%. If we reappropriate the current through, you know, the biological system, which we can talk about, but like you say, it's important that people be able to understand it. So instead of using like over complex words, you know, I try not to, but frequently do. So try and keep it simple for people, which is why we've got code, you know, why I make codes, because I can convey a lot of information really, really easily without overloading somebody. Just give it information, you go away and do with it what you like. It's all inside of you. I don't have to have a long conversation about it. That space is innate, and I really truly believe that's what we're unlocking. But unless we've put the basics in, it's hard. And because of the trauma we've had and what we've been taught around that, and how we've displaced into their distractions, we've got this fracturing that's happening, and we're seeing it every day. It's like people more and more dissociated, literally robotic, through the different things that have happened over the last couple of years, and the mechanisms involved, becoming more and more dissociated, and then you've got this people that have been in that space that are literally exploding, like breaking out, like what going on. And then people that are kind of like, I've stepped more into a space of witness and stillness that I've never had before. And in fact, in a way, I've lost momentum. Like I don't have this ambitious space. I feel like, if it all dropped away, it'd be okay. Completely okay. And because of that, there's things which, I've had things happening in my consciousness that I truthfully I can't explain. I feel like I've been out somewhere and I'm more connected in a collective field now that I describe as a yanni, but I couldn't tell you with any 100% certainty what that means, other than a collective space of love. And if I start to really talk about it, I just lose my mind, just drops into nothingness, and I just start to go into a field of energy, and then everything drops away. So I don't
Talking
know
about things dropping off,
popping off, but it
say,
is presence, isn't it? It's at the end of the
yeah,
day, it's presence,
yeah.
and then we can actualize it in positive ways. We can make different choices.
Yeah, the way I see it is the stillness, and it's something that you do without doing anything, isn't it? Really, it's sort of a point where there's a plateau of complete stillness, but you're at the sort of crossroads. Really, there's a horizontal dimension, but there's a vertical dimension, or that's how it feels. I myself see it like a big board with all sorts of lights on it, and the board's not going anywhere, but it's when the lights go on, it gives the impression of movement. And that's where my head is most of the time, that we're in this box of space and time. And if you like, it's a 15-dimensional time matrix or construct. This is where my head is most of the time now. And all human beings, or the majority of human beings, have access to 12 dimensions, and that's when we get the horoscopes, we get the 12 disciples, the 12 cranial nerves, and my head goes off in all these directions, But I think what's happening is, as this great big wave of cleansing's coming in, this truth vibration, it's forcing up to the surface all the stuff that's been repressed, suppressed, because we've been oppressed, because of our lack of understanding, really. So it's really about letting everybody off the hook, and that's really, really difficult if you've really been abused by somebody, but there is a reason for everything. Now, people will say, oh, that's terrible, that, what about the children, this, that, and the other? Please understand, I'm not condoning any of this bad behavior and all this sort of business, not in the slightest. But I do see at a deeper level, there's an absolute specific meaning for everything that we go through. And that's where I'm up to in my life, And I think that what's actually happening now is, there's things called different harmonic universes, as you know. I mean, I know that you know this, and they're sometimes called different densities. But what seems to be happening is, there's great astrological changes. I say there's astrological changes taking place at the moment. And because planet Earth is involved in this, it's being shifted around, And I think that there's a great big, some people think there's going to be a great big complete shift and reversal and we'll all be wiped out. Well, that's one person, people's view. Other people think that because we've opened our hearts so much and the human's so important, that there's actually a stabilization thing going on, Susanne, I'm not 100% certain, but I have a feeling of underlying optimism here. That, if we can open our hearts more and do what me and you do, you get the call, you go down to Glastonbury Tour or some other place, stick your hands in the air, act as some sort of fuse or circuit, which then restabilizes the crystal pathways. I don't know, but I do think that recently we've moved up into a sixth harmonic universe or density. Shouldn't be called density, really. It should be less dense, I think, more
I
than anything
wrestle with
else.
that sometimes. It's funny, isn't it? That the words that we
Yeah.
use to describe things. But yeah, you're right. I feel it's
But
interesting. I've got something for you, a question. So
okay.
this came to me. 2017 was when this was first coming in, and I had an experience where I sort of mystical types of things. You know, when you have an initiation. So I'm sitting in the initiation, and I walk up to the table and like I'm in a reflection with my God self. Yeah, so the God self has this book, and it's dusty and it's like old, like proper wizard book. It's, you know, slaps it on the table and looks at me like real, like inside my body, and it says, "You've got to realize something here. You've done this millions of times before, and this time you're not going to fuck it up." So this was in 2017 when I was really doubting myself. Yeah, I had all the dimensions were opening up. I could see lots of dark shit. I didn't know what it was. I was scared to death of it, you know, of my own shadow. And I hadn't really engaged too deeply enough with the somatic work. So I had a lot of things to do at that point. But I was so worried about messing it up, like not getting it right, because I could see that I had these codes as well. So felt like there was a tremendous responsibility. So I feel like we've done lots of different sims in this dimensional matrix. So although there are teachings that are being brought in by various people, and we can believe whatever we like, I don't really fixate or believe in any of them, because what I'm feeling in my heart is we're in a simultaneous, we have simultaneous projection, not projections, but they're kind of like that, but they're experiences. So we've got different dimensional bodies having the experiences at the same time, which we're in contact with, like nodes in the brain. Imagine all these different neurons in the brain, but that's like a world. And we're connected in these spaces, in the different densities, like you say, depending on, it's all to do with sound. And as we move the sound, as we're moving the sound, we got caught up in too much atomic space. But as we move the sound, we are communicating. So that's at the fundamental space. And what we do is we get distracted. Our mind distracts in these little pockets all the time. So we can't communicate with that great body. But it's not like we're doing a repetition, because what we want to do, and we say we've done it millions of times, is we want to say it stopped and started again. Yeah, it collapsed and it made again. Like we've got a civilization. Once we concentrate here, we tend to look at the one called Atlantis and the one called Lemuria, but that's just because we've had amnesia and we can't remember the billions of civilizations we live in. And the fact that the earth has had many civilizations in this body as it is, just even in this version, it was 500,000 years ago there were civilizations on this earth in this space, but we can't remember it, so we tend to go in this little tiny teeny space. And what is available to us, it's not saying if you try to remember all that data, you'd explode. That you can't contain the energy. We're like a little wire with this energy running through it. So we have to be content with not trying to go too far too quick, otherwise it hurts our bodies. It's going to hurt us. So we have to, this is why I feel it's really important for us to start listening, because what a lot of people do is they try and blow it quick, and they try to go to this place. Like I honestly feel this is what we are. We're everything. There are trillions of it's a continuum. It's forever. It never stops. We're not going anywhere. We're not actually leaving anything. We just believe that we are, because it's how it's immersive, isn't it? Because of the biochemistry in our bodies. We're just starting to understand the role of DMT.
Absolutely.
Means. Now, once we start to understand that a little bit more, we're going to start to understand that we produce those naturally, and that mechanism has been suppressed in our body by the energy that we have, and the way we don't move our currents, and the water can't behave the way that it can in its structure. So our consciousness is tiny. and it's fixated. And that's, for me, is everything about the whole thing that I've just said. Is it makes me feel so fucking grateful for every experience that I've had in my body, including all the abuse, including every time someone's hurt me, every crossword, all the times that I felt alone, everything, because this is a miracle. This is a miracle, and it so often feels like it's a curse, or that we're being attacked, or there's some bad person, in charge and stuff. Like, nobody's fucking got anything over you. Like, as soon as you realize this, that you have got a right to self-determine, even if it's just to take the next breath. I'm going to take the next breath. I think I'm at the end, but I'm going to breathe again, because I've been there too. And that is the space. Is you can't erase yourself. No, whatever the language that is used by some people that don't know any different, where they say your soul's gonna get fried into dust. This shit is this, like, no, you're so loved. You're so utterly loved. So utterly loved. And the experience of being human is such an initiation. It's such big space, because we fall in so hard, and it feels hard on our body and our heart and our emotional complexes. So I think navigating this, what for me is the overriding thing that I have learned, if someone asked me, is just compassion, to try and meet everybody. If I try to talk about this stuff to most people, they go, you need to go to an institution, love. You've been on that. They did it, actually. I put a comment in a post on a more mainstream site, and they was calling me all sorts of names. So that's generally what people think. So I try to, the last few months, I've spent a lot of time in community, just meeting regular people and listening to what they've got to say. And that's been beautiful, because I realise that I can meet people in this space at a complex level, or just in presence. There's no narrative. It's just what it is. I don't care what anyone believes, really. It's everyone's having an initiation, and it's individual, isn't it? Whatever that individual part is, but everyone's got a key. Everyone's got encryptions. So encryption is like security-based data, because we're in a time matrix. So we've come into this density with the encryption keys, and everyone's keys matter. We're all chosen, because we are special. We're all so special, but we're all equal. Like, in that space, we all have keys, and when we meet, when we resonate, those keys activate. If we learn to listen, this is where the miracles are going to start happening, especially with the children, because they've got different constructs now. They're coming in.
I'm right with you on all that, and that's the way I see things. I see it really clearly. What you said about, in the beginning was the word. So to me, in the human experience anyway, sound came before light, and I think that the sound it could have been God farting for all we know, you know what I mean, but it created a storm, you know what I mean. You talk about the three solar rishis, and the different rays and stuff like that, but that's how I see it now. And from a quantum physics, or just an ordinary physics point of view, there's all sorts of things that have been proven this, Faraday's cages and the effect of sound. And I honestly believe that it's sound that directs light, and it directs light very specifically based upon the frequency of the light as well. That then impacts upon how it affects water. And I'm talking about, as you know, the fourth phase of water here, the fourth phase of water. And pH is important. And this is, all my stuff is about optogenetics, but my favorite one is chromatooptogenetics. And people say to me, well, what's that? I say, I don't know. The word just popped into my head. And as far as I can understand it, it means the effect of sound and tones on directing light to impact upon particular stem cells that basically create us. So it affects the biochemistry of the body. And as you quite rightly said, the way that we act and the way that our heart sends information out will determine the biochemical composition of our bodies, you know. And this is why people, when they say to me, what is it that you really do? I say, I'm a consultant in psycho, neuro, endocrino, immunohematology. And they don't ask me any questions after that then, really. But what I'm trying to say to them is, it's the way that we perceive the world that determines the way that our heart sends out the vibrations. And the soul, working through the heart as the organ, will send out specific vibrations. This is the law of attraction, that draw to it the people, the places, the scenes, the sounds, and all the scenery that's needed on that day for us to learn the next lesson. And some people don't like we're not here to learn lessons. All right, put this any way you like, but this is the way I explain it. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, right? So what I'm trying to say is, it's the next step we have to take in the evolution of our consciousness. And evolution suggests that there's somewhere to go. Well, let's call it expansion of consciousness. Call it what you like, but you start to see things much more clearly. And in the end, it just becomes a great big cosmic guffaw, you know. But I wouldn't say that to people who are obviously in 3D going through hell. And as you quite rightly say, a compassionate person who understands this can drop their vibration to resonate with where that person is. So it's about resonance and understanding where that person is. And people that, you know, Susanne, there's a complete difference to me between sympathy, empathy, and compassion. Sympathy to me is, you know, where you've got no understanding of the emotion or the affective domain that goes with it. Empathy is where you've been through similar feelings, so you do have some sort of emotional connection. But this is the difficult one. Compassion is cool. It's detached with love. It doesn't mean to say that it doesn't feel, but it doesn't get ambushed, right, by that other person's story, you know. And that's where I was for years. People would come to me for some God knows unknown reason, and they'd share, you know, when you're sitting on the bus and someone comes and sits next to you and tells you their life story, you think, fucking hell, I've just come for a quiet ride on the bus here. And I used to think I had like a big pink balloon tied to me to say, come and talk to me, I'm lonely, you know. Anyway, I digress as normal. But what I'm trying to say is, I used to get hooked on their story, and then I'd be going around and trying to fix them when I obviously had a wife and children to look after and stuff like that. Well, I'd get distracted. The one who did it more to me than anything else, I'll say that again. The one I allowed to do that to me more than anybody else was my mother. And she would ring up and say, son, I've got all these complicated forms here. You're clever, right? So that was the first one, right? Come here, my boy, I need you. You know that one. I can't understand this. So you'll have to come round because it's got to be in by tomorrow. Can you come round? I used to drop everything that I was doing to do with my family and then run round to my mother. Anyway, one of the biggest things I learned and the hardest things to do was say to my mother, I'm sorry, mother, I'm busy tonight. And there's a part of her that used to turn around, all part of the learning, and then she used to go, you've become awfully selfish. You know, in that voice, you've turned into a really selfish, horrible person since you've been knocking around with those people in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And they were saying to me, Joe, she's not doing it to you, right? You're allowing it. Yes, and all your energy that you need to live your own individual life is being given away to play somebody else's game. And Susanne, once I started to see where I was giving my power and my energy away, my life started to change. Was it easy to stand up to my mum and dad? Of course it wasn't, but I had to do it. And that's what I'm talking about. I'd spiritually bypassed or shadow bypassed that for years and made excuses to all the people around me and to myself. Oh, but it's me mum. Blood is thicker than water. You know, all that shit that comes up. And in the end, I realized that part of my growth was to say, no, I'm sorry. I haven't got time. I've got more important things to do. And the backlash Have you ever seen that film, The Exorcist? Well, that's what it was like. You know, DVD, I am your mother. You should help me because I love you. I bore you. And my mother used to say to me things like, you came out of me and I've wiped your dirty arse, you know, and all this sort of stuff, you know, trying to hook me back in with those pleasantries.
Gosh, I feel very lucky, actually. I mean, my mum's going to watch this. She's doing a live downstairs at the moment, teaching it online.
Sorry, Mum. I was talking about my mother.
I'm just going to say, Mum, I love you. I'm really glad that you are controlling sometimes, but you're not like that.
Yeah, but I can see that, you know, I can see clearly that what I was trying to be shown was, right, to detach with love. Because my mum's in a nursing home around the corner and I go and see her 4 times a week, you know, and see how she's getting on, right? But there's been the love-hate. I loved her more than anybody else on this planet, and I've also hated her more than anybody else. And now that's gone. All that has left me. I'm completely free of it.
It's like a magnetic thing, isn't it? That I think our families, because it's like information family systems, you know, the constellations, we constellate, don't we? The same patterns wherever we go. And there's that, it's like fatal attraction, isn't it? Like to your parents. And I think that also some of it's generational, because we are this generation of humans. So the modern time, we were so busy trying to just survive in the matrix systems before, because of the things that have happened and occurred, that we've only just started to have this power, this space of to realize, because of where the planet's going and the alignments and the energies of because we planned it like this, obviously, where there's less, there's super attraction, but there's more space for us to draw away from that. And it's actually quite hard sometimes, isn't it? Like, I'm sure you found that really difficult, Joe, at first, because I found it hard to say no. I had a different fire. I call those things lighting fires. It's what we do. We all do it. We've all done it. It's control. We control relationships in different ways. So we light fires for attention, and sometimes we'll give a compliment first. It's all about validation and bias and all the stuff that we know psychologically, but we don't know we're doing it. It's not conscious. So we're then ridden. It's like something gets in the car, like from your mum, and then that's driving the car. Like, you think it's you and it's not you. I had that in my long marriage. So I didn't know, like in my relationships, the long one, I had a very long relationship. And what I realized is it was built on codependence, like really big codependence. So I was in that space for 26 years. And I would have sworn to you before I left that relationship that I was a depressive person, that I had these terrible feelings inside of my body and a lot of self-doubt. And I thought it was coming from me. And I would have sworn that to be true, until I actually left the house after the relationship broke down. And I finally left the house. It was very difficult because I was leaving my children with my partner. And I left the house, and within 3 days, and only 3 days, I was a different person. Now that was a key learning for me, because I couldn't even admit narcissism. Like, it was so hard for me to realize that I had engaged with this for so many years. And at that point, I made a promise to myself to say no, to commit to this pillar, whatever it took, to engage in shadow work, to do the work, to commit to this body, no matter what anyone called me selfish. That was just a label. Like, I needed to function. I wasn't going to be a good mother to my children or a functional person in society until I could be accountable for my own energy and know that this feeling that I have in my body is mine and not somebody else's. And that is a withdrawal of consent. That's what I call a withdrawal of consent. It devastates our relationships because they're not getting their food anymore. But in turn, you're not trying to control other people. So in my life, I realized, God damn it, I was a controller as well. So, you have to look at yourself most of all. And it was a wake-up call. I had to grieve a little bit as well, because I could see how that had affected my parenting and lots of perceptions about life. I couldn't be in the present moment because of the burden of guilt. Like you said, forgive. This is important now, to forgive yourself. Because if you can't forgive yourself, then how can you forgive other people? So I did that work, and it was really big. It's still ongoing, you know. It's not, I didn't sort of just do it then, like I'm not showing it like that. It's an ongoing process. But for me, regardless of your systems of perception and energy, how we are as a human being is at the center of it all, isn't it? Isn't that what we came to be? to find the richness in what we are, and we can't if we're all like entrained in other people's stuff. So like you were saying, like empathy is great, and people go, well, I'm an empath. Oh, I'm so burdened by the morphogenic field. Oh my God, I've got to heal the world. I've got to heal everybody. Oh, I can't open my senses because it's just, whenever I do, I feel so shit and so drained and so bad. It's like, no, because you've got no boundaries. Where is your boundaries? Where is your core energy? What practices are you engaging with? Oh, just go listen to this person speak online. It's like, no, you actually have to engage with your own field and know what it is. And see, I wasn't doing that at first. I was trying to do all the right things, and I did have meditation and things, but I just hadn't found the practice that worked for me. I hadn't found what was right for me. I was trying to follow what everyone else was saying was right.
Yeah.
I didn't find what was right for me. I hadn't worked it out. So this is the key message, is you have to become sovereign of your own field and space. And it doesn't matter what mom or dad or your husband or wife or your kids are demanding from you. If we continue like that, we're going to carry on in this karmic bullshit. The world is going nowhere unless we forgive all the energy and come to resonance. It will just keep repeating. That's what we've got at the moment. It's like ricochet time in the pinball machine. Hello, it's crazy, isn't it? You can literally see the play erupting in front of you.
You can, and I think it's presented to you on a daily basis. I think every single day, and tomorrow, if you don't get it right, it'll come back again, but louder. And you know, so I've developed this thing, and I don't always get it right. I sit down. What are you trying to show me here? You know, what are you trying to show me? You said yes again when you really need to say no. What's the solution? Ring them up and say, I've rethunked it, right? And I'm awfully sorry. I said I could do this, but I see now that I can't. And generally speaking, if you get it right, they go, oh, no problem. And then they'll go and collar somebody else then, you know. But it's the whole point is, it's not what their response to that is. It's you taking the action that breaks the chains. It breaks the bonds that bind us, you know. But it's through action. It's almost like you've got to have a samurai sword like that, chopping all these weeds off all the time as they start to attach to you. How do you know that they're attaching to you? Because you can feel them come in, like you said, you know. I love, you know, empaths are great, you know, being through the process myself, you know, when you're with somebody and they go like that, I hope you don't mind me saying, but I can sense this energy with you and it's very dark, right? And I say, yeah, that's okay. It's the devil. I say, I work with the devil now, right? What do you mean? You know, then and if that doesn't work, yeah, if that doesn't work, I say, get out of my face, right? Just get out of my face. But you know, you learn, don't you? But you learn to live, but you also learn to laugh as well. And you know, if you can't laugh at yourself for all the nonsense that you've created, then I feel that there's still a way to go and still things that need to be looked at, you know, because in the end, it's us that lets us off the hooks. You know, we don't need forgiveness from anybody else. In fact, forgiveness is probably a strange word with all sorts of emotional connotations. I think it's just seeing it as it is. And sometimes when people say to me, you know, sometimes you just need to shine the light or allow the light of awareness to shine on the situation, and that will release you. But sometimes you've actually got to take a physical action to do it as well. So, one of the things that I did for a long time was I kept justifying not taking the action, and some of these things lasted a long time, and in the end, when I actually went, faced an individual, said, look, I'm sorry for my part in what happened. If there's anything I can do here to straighten it out, then I will do that now. And I can see clearly this is what I should have done. And I was told quite clearly, if they retaliate in any way, zip it, shut up. You've done your part now. You've apologized. You've seen it. Their reaction to it is nothing to do with you. That's their responsibility. And that was hard, because I was used to justifying and telling, if you hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have done it. No. Clean your own side of the street and allow that energetic exchange to see where they have to clean their side of the street as well. And there's a phrase I like, it's, why do you need to tell a man with a broken leg he's got a broken leg? Right. I'll leave you with that one. Over to you.
Beautiful. Well, there's nothing to add there. It's perfect. Absolutely. I have a sort of similar thing that with the blades, like I was still in victimization. And this was a kind of Christ. I have this Christ body. So, people say they're channeling Jesus Christ. It wasn't like that at all. It's a very deep relationship with the Christ body, so your own state. And for me, it's come in many different ways. But so the conversation was about forgiveness, because I was struggling to forgive the part of me that just felt at such a loss of the father figure, because my father never wanted me, and he was, like many fathers, unfortunately, without resources, was unable to cope with life. So he was abusive and took those choices, in alcohol and various different things. So I found that I couldn't forgive because I just felt such a loss in my little child. And so the message was, as I'd got older and the moss had grown, it's like the snowball, you pick it up. So the vision was, I saw myself with all these swords in my back, and I was just lying there all bloody and fucked really on the floor. And I'm just like, shit, like I've had such a shit cosmic life, like this thing I've been at war, because back then I was still in my trauma body. So what he said was, this part of me said, you do realize you put all those swords in your back? I was like, what? I said, no, you designed that. This is, you've put all those are your swords that you've put in your back. And the thing about it is that it's because we're all connected. We can't get away from it. It's a terrible thing, isn't it, when we think about all the dark shit in the world, but that we are connected, and it's one body of energy. We have this connection, but we're choosing to come out of that connection at this density where it's very polarized, where there's lots of different positions of energy, and some are very harmful and some are not so. So I could feel this in my body. My body was like vibrating. They said, you've got to take every sword out of your body, and then you've got to wash it clean with love, with forgiveness, and you've got to go and present it to the thing that you think is the enemy. And you've got to go to them with the sword and just lay it down at the feet and say, I forgive you. And then you've got to walk away. And the rest has got nothing to do with you. And that, I took that in so deeply, because the change in my physical body has been so big because of this process, because of doing those things over a number of years. Like those relationships that I thought were impossible to heal have healed. Even my mom that I spoke about, our relationship's completely different. It's conscious, and we use non-violent communication, consideration, and things like that, because it takes consciousness to conduct yourself like this, rather than assuming things. We just try and make a story for something we want, and then we concoct a situation to make the other one behave the way we want to get the thing that we want. And that's essentially describes the ways humans conduct themselves, or we change ourselves to fit the situation. We accommodation, we compartmentalize, and then that allows us to forget those are the things that happened a lot, obviously, when people were making harmful decisions in the last thing that went down, there was a lot of people justifying their behaviors by compartmentalization, or do this terrible thing to you, but I'll justify it in myself because I can compartmentalize. So we have this ability to do those things, but that's because we're not connected with our core. And then when we can't do that anymore. So people worry and they say, well, what happens if I misuse my power? It's like, you don't misuse your power. Once you're in your heart, if you step out of line, you get your ass kicked and your energy collapses. You just end up in bed like, what the fuck happened there?
I know it well. I know it well. So I plan to talk about completely different things, but that's the way it goes, and that's it. I love the word extemporaneously, meaning without a script, without an agenda. Just turn up, put your bum on the seat, open your heart, open your gob, and see what comes out next. And I think that's what we've done tonight. I think I feel very positive for the future, but my life's become very, very simple now, in that I just listen to my heart and just focus on my breathing. And if I don't know what to do, I almost like tap on my heart to say, can you give us a clue, please? And that to me is what insight is, inspiration, intuition, because my head's in a place now where it can actually say, I really don't know what's going on. And Susanne, to be honest with you, that's most of the time now. I've got no idea what's going on. So I tend to take me information that emerges up, it presents itself on a plate in front of me, and then it'll say something like, turn left, right? And it is that simple, Do I get it right all the time? No, but much more than I ever have done, How do I feel in myself? I feel strong, I feel clear, I feel hopeful for the future, but I haven't got any expectations of where it's going, because I think we have to go from expect to inspect. And I think that was the big thing, is the more expectations, the less peace of mind, especially when they don't turn out how you expect them to be, So we've covered a lot tonight, and it's lovely to see you. And I love your light codes, and just for people who don't really understand light codes, there are various frequencies of light and depth, but they're probably working more not consciously, but on our unconscious, beyond our understanding of consciousness. But sometimes I was told that sometimes when you're looking at these sort of light codes and things, if you just allow your eyes to go googly, and almost like cross-eyed, it sort of helps your cerebral hemispheres to merge, and then the information comes in much more quickly then. And don't be looking for any changes, because generally what happens to me is it's a couple of days later I can start to feel feelings in me, and that's where I'm up to now, and I honestly feel that some light codes will work for some people, right, at a particular time, and work for others at another time as well, so it's a particularly specific and unique thing, the way that they work, I love your stuff. I'm more inclined towards the less light, actually, the darker stuff that you do. So you did one the other day with the nervous system and a cell and an axon, right? And somebody put it up in dark blue, right? And that really, really came through with me. I prefer the much deeper and darker colors, so
yeah. Some people they like different things because they're drawn to different things, and actually it's almost like, I'm not gonna be able to explain the layers. So there's elements in, say, like this code is what I would call a big systems architecture. So it's got codes within codes within codes within codes within codes. It's massive. So there are codes that are like that are very big, what I consider big codes. Then there are simpler codes, and I'm doing some for the body at the moment that's very important for us. So they're much more physical. I'm trying to draw them like the thing, so it's easier to get. Simple things. And then for me, there's very simple, what I call scripting, which is just like systematic scripting. When the hand is sort of doing that, it's scripting things. It's moving. So that's very, very simple. space. So they are very different. They're a different code. So as an architect, I appreciate the variance. And you're right that one code for one person on one day and the same code for another person is not going to activate the same way, because when you are, some people make spells, and spells are codes, but they're directive. I do not direct and I do not influence. I work very, very hard on myself to not do this. I try not to. It's very important not to have entrainment. Now, this is a big field. It's a dark field because a lot of people don't do this and they have influence. And then we believe the thing and we take it in for ourselves, and that's how it all works. But we try not to do that, because the power is in not doing that. The power is in you present the information. What you said is that's it. We just present the information and then we let it the fuck go. Then it's just in the field and you can just appreciate that at the time. And for me, that's like you said with the eyesight, looking without seeing. That's really, really important.
It's you know what, I wish
it's just so beautiful. I just cry if I ever try to explain the depths and the potential in this. It's a science, Joe. I believe this is a science. I believe that I am here as a scientist and as someone who has no PhD or education in this field, but I feel like I can feel the mechanics of the universe and translate them like this. And it's a science of energy.
I've got no doubt about that whatsoever.
It's just so beautiful that we don't have to think or label or give a meaning, because we're not going to go there in the future. We're not going to need that, really, if we let go.
I agree, and I think people have called this Merkaba mechanics. I quite like that, and I think that they misunderstand that. I've been a member of something called the Radionics Association for nearly 30 years now, and that's basically you mentioned miasmic and miasms and stuff like that. So this is a multi-sensory approach really to being released, and I think the simpler we can keep it, the better. The more relaxed we are when we allow these things to come in without any sort of agenda or direction. I'm very interested in, sort of sequencing. I think that things have to be released in an exact sequence, but the human mind doesn't know that. We have to let go of the human mind and the direction of it. It's a bit like when people come to me with chronic low back pain, and they say to me, it's my back, right? And I open my heart up and I get work on their shoulders, right? And so I'm working on the shoulders and they're saying to me, no, it's in my back. And I said, hang on a second, right? So work on their shoulders. They get up and say, my back pain's gone. You see, so we have to allow the intuition or the deeper aspects of us to sort of guide us and stuff like that. There's so much, but flash lines and resequencing and fire letters and all these things, I think what's actually happened over time, and I'm going to get into trouble saying this, is nefarious intelligences, right, have scripted things, that has directed us away from our true core essential bioenergetics. And I think what's actually happening now, despite all these sort of, despite all the scattering technologies that are being used, I think the light is so much more powerful now that it's blasting its way through that, and if we can go into more and more nature, more and more sunshine, more and more clean air if possible, because there's all sorts of stuff going on there as well now. I think that if we can learn to try and clean up our own act as best we can, then the light that's coming through and the truth vibration that's associated with it will allow us to see things much more clearly. And I think that we're just riding this great wave now of freedom, and I feel it's strengthening now. They call it the tsunami of love, and I honestly believe that that's what's happening, Susanne.
You've got the power to change it as well. I just wanted to add to that about there's a lot of things like you go out in the sun, but yeah, exactly. There are things there. There is stuff. Yeah, toxins. So let's just call it collective toxicity. Yeah. So what you do have is you've got the power to transmute, And this is a whole other conversation about the solar body and the water body and the essential relationship between the two bodies, because you don't need to be out in the sun to connect with the solar body. And the solar body is also at the heart of the earth, even though conventional science tells us completely some other information. What we've got here is a differential in the parameters of memory and density, that because we forget what we are, it's like we just think there's this body. So I think the power to transmute is the simple thing, is just to declare it to be so. So it's like, I've got my water here, it's not empty. It's just like, you know, going back to Emoto, it's just so simple. Just like, love your water, love your food, love your body taking in the food, love the environment you're in, love the sky and the clouds, even though they've got toxins in them, even though the soil, you know, all the stuff that's been given to us to keep us in that state, we have the power to transmute it. It's so powerful because it's moving our DNA at the same time, it's moving the epigenetic structure. So you're right, it's very, very important to find the power inside of yourself, you know. And you know, like, I sell codes and I say, I've got one here, so like this code that's behind you here, this is the Cathara grid. This is so powerful. This is the mechanics of the freaking universe, the eternal universe. Like, yeah. So it's like, you put that under your water, it's you know, it's going to do something to the water. Yeah, it's going to restructure it. But you don't need a card. You don't need Susanne Amara's card to restructure your water. It's just nice. It's nice. It's powerful. But you can do that in your own heart, just with love. That's the point of it, is that it's nice to have these things. But when the lights go out, if they go out, which they might, everything is off, and you're there scrabbling around in the dark. That's what happened to me in COVID. Going back to that thing, my central nervous system was fucked and the lights went out. And in that moment, all I had was my breath and the silence and the repetitivity of presence. And that is, if we nail that, we've got the universe. It's always inside and it's free. Doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter what happened, we've got it. And that gives us a degree of ability to traverse incredible things if things happen. You know, look at what's just happened in Turkey, for example. It's devastating to see, you know, to experience. It happens, you know, lots of things happen. I mean, that's just one thing of many things happening all over our beautiful planet. You can suddenly find yourself in a different situation. Something happens, the only space you've got is inside. So all material things can be stripped away, or relationships can be stripped away, your health can be stripped away, but we've got this space inside, and it makes you incredibly powerful because you don't then have fear. There's nothing can have fear over you, so that you're basically unvulnerable at that moment, and you're not trying to impress anybody. You don't need anything from anybody. You've just got yourself. You're self-generating. So that to me is what sovereignty is. So it doesn't matter what it, you know, we can make it any label we like. We can call it God or the Christ or cosmic or whatever body we give to it as a word, but it's an energy, it's a frequency, and it's the stillness. It's what you said originally was before light, the sound. That's what our Yanni body calls the kundre before, and then it becomes the cosmic trinity, the kirasha. And that's why these words are powerful when they're spoken. It's why time stands still when we do that. So these things are the things that we're learning in ourselves. We learn what sounds work for us, because it'd be different in you and different in me. But you know, you've got your own personal frequencies. This is, I think it's just like a re-education, isn't it? Really, we're just in we've been bad kids. And now we're getting re-educated. So this is the re-education of our space. It just feels important to say this at this moment, because, you know, this sort of things that are happening can push us into fear. It can. And because of that, we still go back, we regress back. So this is what's happening, because I'm starting to talk a little bit about the miasma and about the things that people get attached to and use to influence people. I'm getting a lot of blowback in my community and from people when I'm questioning people's motivations for these things. So the power has got to come inside, and people will stop getting influenced. Like, no, it's bad. I've had juju come in and it's hurting me and it's attacking me and it's stripping out my energy. It's like, well, command your fucking space then, and keep commanding it and do it relentlessly. Like you say with the swords, like every day, like get it until you're straight, until you feel confident. And then
I couldn't agree more.
Every day. Like
I have a thing in the way I look at it is like flies landing and the cow's tail going, off you go, you know. And it's just like it's a self-cleansing place. It's like a windscreen wiper, really. And I agree entirely with you. I get people on to saying they're being attacked by demons. They feel like they're being interfered with and all that. I get, no, you're not. Right. You're the power. Right. Can't touch you.
Well, it feels like a demon. That's because we're in an immersive reality, the energy field that you create and what your story you're generating, that's why things start to happen to people when they start to validate the stories positively and negatively in that space. Is so if I believe, if I'm an Eskimo, I'm not likely to see the devil, am I? That's what I'm trying to say. I'm going to see some dark shit out of the sea, or a bad seal, a bad polar bear, demon. If I'm in the jungle, I'm going to see negative jungle spirits. But it's down to the energy sequencing that we took on. So whatever it is going to generate as the archetype in your field, and that's going to feel like an influence upon you or on you while you are not suffering. So it has variability, but in the West, because we're basically Christianic, Luciferian trained through the systems of genetic inheritance as well, because it does play a part in the mitochondria that we create. And then because of the power of the morphogenic field that we haven't even tapped into yet, and we're living in a field all the time. You know, this was written about. Limit Taggart wrote about this. Harry Oldfield wrote about this 20 years ago. That this field is powerful. It's powerful as fuck. And what happens is that it's been powerfully manipulated. Hasn't it? We've been powerfully manipulated into this hypnosis. So it's like, of course I'm going to see the archangels. Of course I'm going to do that. Of course and they're going to give me these things and all this benefits. So it's like, it's all psychonauts. It's just you're not in your power. You can't be in your power if you're giving it to some being out there. It's a total paradox, a complete contradiction of the Christ.
I was told 30 odd years ago, cut out the middleman and go straight back to source. And that's what I've been doing. I've been given the techniques, shown the techniques, and they are simple, because if you just tap on your heart like that and you breathe in 6 breaths per minute, and you listen in with your left ear into your heart and the soul and say, I'm not quite sure what to do here. Give us a clue, and then wait. And generally speaking, you'll feel moved, right? You'll feel moved. And it is really that simple, you know. And I think that now more and more people are tuning into the fact that we've allowed at all sorts of levels ourselves to be duped, conned, misdirected and everything else. And when the lights go on, initially there's like a furore arises, right? But what I have to tell people, like I was told, is nobody did this to you without your permission at some level. It's all part of learning, right? And like you say before, is to me, the human is the hero, as Todd would say, because this is about allowing the soul to completely embody this human skin suit, right? But not only that, is to actually shine through every single cell, every single pore, every single hair, every single fiber, to allow it to become completely unobstructed. And that's what will do the trick, really. I'm going to have to go now, but something came to mind before, you know, and I put a meme up just before it came on. It'll get me in trouble. But, you know, the ancients believed that everything had an intelligence, you know, and, you know, as above, so below, you know, and that the planets, and the Mayans used to believe this, that the planets had feelings too, you know, and it was important to send love to the planets because it would be returned in some way. And so at this time, in this very strange time that we're in, it's very important to love Uranus. And on that note,
I knew you were
On
gonna
that note,
so.
I'm going to say thanks very much. I love you like mad. We'll have to have another one of these where maybe we can get talking about the new move into the sixth density and the opening up of the 16th, 17th, and 18th dimensions with 12 sub-frequencies in each. But we'll leave that until another time. Susanne, love, thanks very much. It's lovely to see you. And I hope you have fun on your travels. And I've got a big thing going up my spine now. That's always a good sign to say, yes, well done, son. You know, you're on the right track. So thanks, love, and speak to you soon and keep in touch. Thanks very much, everybody. Lovely to see you all.
Thank you for watching as well, everybody.
Bye-bye.